So, did you love Shrek
I
or
love
did you hate it?
I love Shrek. It what was so much fun about Shrek was it was getting to be a child again. I mean, it was working on puppets. It was working on making things do magical stuff. I mean, you love props, but you live for the time you get to make magic props. Um,
Like what specifically? Like
like
Pinocchio's nose?
uh well the growing flowers at the end, when they grew out of the building, that was fun trying to figure out how we were going to get those things to grow on cue.
Where
um
he, like at the beginning,
where it
remember, he
farts and
toots.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and
And
it
the
like
flower
made that
blooms.
big flower, and then they all came out of the house. It was finding the flower that would do that, and then figuring out how to rig them in the house to make them do what they were supposed to do. Um, the dragon was magical.
Yeah, let's talk about this dragon.
The dragon,
It's
yeah.
the most beautiful prop I think I've ever seen. Talk to me about your process with imagining and then building this beautiful prop.
Well, dragon is so specific. I mean, people, when they know Shrek, they know dragon. Dragon is this big, beautiful creature. And when we first knew that Shrek was on, Megan and I were like, dragon, we have to talk about dragon. We have to talk about dragon so early in the process, because this is a major, major prop. And so we were, at the time, we had looked into renting a dragon, which is would just not look right with the way the design was going. Where we were going with, which I thought was magical and wonderful. We were using, it was, the world was found objects. I mean, basically, if you think about it, all of those characters were found objects. They had socks and weird things on them as their costumes to create these creatures.
What's a found object?
Found object is, if you think about found object art, it's just things that everybody has all over it's just there. And so if you look at a sock, it's a sock puppet is your epitome of a found object being used a different way. So you found a sock, you just stick it on your hand and push it in, and then you got a little puppet and you start talking. So that's where we were kind of going with Shrek. That's where the costume design was going. That's where Katie's brain was, and it was just, we loved that idea. So renting dragon would not work. She would just not fit in the world that we had. So Megan and I pulled Katie and we said, look, if we're going to do this, we're all game, but we need to start building her in December so that we can start figuring out how to make everything work. And then we have to get a prototype to figure out how big she needs to be. So we have to get on stage with you and people who have to decide, because we can only build this prop once. This is not something we can give you in rehearsal and have come back and go back and forth. And so we set
If
down
you
a
start into, pardon me for interrupting, if you start in December, when was opening night?
when did Shrek was our summer show.
Yeah,
So it opened in May. Um, so
I knew that.
okay, I'm glad you did. I don't remember. But so we knew that if we were going to do this, we would have to set up a timeline that Megan and I, they could not have Dragon for any reason whatsoever.
The actors in
The
rehearsal.
actors or anybody until this specific date. And then they could have her for 2 weeks. And after that, we had to have her back to finish her, and then they would have her for tech. It's just that she was so huge. It took, let's see, there were two people on the wings. There were there was one person who carried the body, one person who carried the tail, one person who controlled her eyes and her mouth. So that was what? That's five people had to control this puppet. And so she was massive. She literally took up the entire stage. Her wingspan was, if she looked down center, her wingspan was almost the width of the stage. It was amazing. She was large. Um, So we lined it up. Katie was great with the idea. We knew that the players would be in town on this specific date because tour brought them through, and she was going to have them all. So they were going to have puppet practice. And the only place we could do puppet practice, because she didn't fit in the rehearsal hall here. She was too big. She never came over here to rehearsal.
Wow.
I guess she did. She did do a little bit of rehearsal in here. But we did several rehearsals up in the old production building when it was empty, because they moved over here.
The high ceiling.
Yeah, they had the high ceiling. So we brought her in there and they did a couple rehearsals so we could see how she moved. But anyways, I'm jumping ahead. We took cardboard in January. We cut out what we thought was going to be her head size out of a bunch of cardboard boxes that we taped together, and then we cut them out. And then we had a bunch of rattan, I think we did her body out of cardboard too, and taped sticks to it. And then we pulled out, we had some we were going to make her wings out of silk, but we didn't have a lot of silk, so we had a lot of rayon. And it says orangey. It was like almost like this stuff, but it was it was shinier. And we used that as her wings, and we took her up on stage, and it was me and Megan and Camille who stood and held the puppet.
Wow. Camille,
and
the
Katie
production
stand
manager.
out in the audience to see how big it was, to see were we going the right direction, because we didn't want to start anything until we knew where we were going with her.
Right.
And so we got all the sizes figured out then. And then Megan and I plotted certain days that were nothing but dragon days. And so Megan and I would be in, I think we did a lot of weekends. We'd come in so we could build other shows, but then come in on the weekend and work on nothing but dragon.
Oh, wow. How usual is that? Is that unusual?
That's unusual.
To block out whole days for a specific prop.
That is very unusual. You will probably sometimes have a week on a prop, but you'll just do that just straight through. But for her, this was different because we were not working on that show at all. Just Megan and I were working on things. Because what we ended up doing was her head was made out of all this bent wire. We had to keep it light, but she had to be able to withstand a lot of usage. And she couldn't get too heavy because they were holding her. So we got from the costume shop, we got these drum harnesses, like they use for marching. And that's what we attached her to. Yeah, so they could hold her and take most of the weight on the shoulders and hips. And then her head was made all out of bent drop ceiling hanger wire, for drop ceilings. We did that and just did all the contours, and we did smaller, thinner wire to do connections. And so it was just this big open wire mesh. And we found some clear plastic orbs for her eyes that Megan painted the inside for her eyeballs so we could put lights inside her eyes. And then we used a blackout curtain for her eyelids that closed and opened. And then I did a bunch of reading up in puppet places about using brake line, like for your bicycle brake lines. And that's exactly how we moved everything. So it was a matter of squeezing handles that made her mouth open and made her eyes blink, because you're shortening and lengthening cables. And so we had to buy a bunch of bike cable and a bunch of bike cable sheath.
How much are we talking about? Like one cable for one eye or one cable for both eyes?
It was
what would have been the length?
I think it was one cable for both eyes, but.
And what's the length of that one specific cable?
Oh, it was feet. It was feet, because it had to go through her head, down through her head, which
was 12 feet.
Yeah, probably, because her head was a good 3 feet tall, and then that was on a pole that was way up above. So it was a massive amount. And then she spit fireballs, so we had to have electronics running through her, so when she opened her mouth he had to fire. I mean, the controller, Garrett was controller, And man, he had to push buttons and pull things and move while she was singing, had to actually mime the mouth while she was singing.
Yeah, it
And
was a beautiful puppet. I'm
oh
just
yeah,
thankful that no sound had come out of that.
yeah, I am too. I don't know how we could have put that in there, but she, man, she was all encompassing, and it
Beautiful.
worked perfect to like to a. We were still putting teeth in her mouth the first day of tech, so we
Wow.
didn't quite get it completely ready, but we got her teeth in before she had to go on stage.
Well, that puppet was was created and operated as well as any puppet ever in the world. I'm
It was
telling you,
amazing.
amazing, amazing achievement.
Yeah.